Welcome. Thank you for standing by. Throughout today's conference, all participants will remain in listen-only mode. During the Q&A portion of the call, you may press star 1 on your touch-tone phone if you would like to ask a question. Today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now I'll turn your conference over to Paige Hausberg. Thank you. You may begin.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here for our call today where we're going to discuss finding the right security assessor for the tribal child support agencies. Before we get started, I'm going to do a roll call to see who's with us. And I'm going to do that by going through the list of tribal child support programs and see who's on with us. I understand that there is an NTCSA board meeting today, so some people might not be with us today, and as the operator said, this call is being recorded so that people that didn't make the call will be able to listen at their convenience. And now that I'm thinking of that, we're not going to be able to do a roll call because everybody's in a listen-only mode.
If you like, I can temporarily unmute the lines.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's do that.
One moment.
Thanks.
Okay. All lines are open for now.
Great. Thank you. Alabama Coshada Tribe of Texas?
Yes, Cecilia Flores here.
Thank you. Aleutian Privilov? Blackfeet Nation? Tlingit and Haida? Cherokee Nation? Chickasaw Nation? Chippewa Cree? Coeur d'Alene? Comanche? Confederated Salish and Kootenai? Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation? Confederated Tribes of Umatilla? Delaware Tribe of Indians? Eastern Band of Cherokee?
Afternoon, Paige.
Hey, Sandy. Eastern Shoshone? Forest County Potawatomi? Fort Belknap?
Good morning, Paige.
Hi, sis. Ho-Chunk? Kaw Nation?
Here.
Thanks. Keweenaw Bay? Kickapoo Tribe in Kansas? Kickapoo Tribe of Oklahoma? Klamath Tribe? Lakoutere? Lac du Flambeau? Leech Lake? Lummi Nation? Menominee? Mescalero Apache? The Locks? Modoc? Muskogee Creek? Navajo Nation?
Hey, Paige.
Hey, Judy. Nez Perce? Nooksack? Northern Arapaho? Oneida?
Miss Schuyler, Oneida Nation.
Oh, great. Thank you. Osage?
Ashley Wilson, Osage Nation.
Thank you. Penobscot? Ponca Tribe of Oklahoma? Port Gamble Squalum?
Hi, it's Maria.
Hey, Maria. Prairie Band Potawatomi? Pueblo of Zuni? Puyallup? Quinault? Redcliffe?
Hi, Paige, Lana, Tish, and Theron here.
Oh, thank you. Red Lake? Meskwaki Nation?
We're here, Paige.
Thanks, Allison. Shoshone-Bannock, Sisseton-Wahpeton, St. Regis Mohawk, Standing Rock Sioux, Stockbridge Muncie.
Yes, Tammy Pecor.
Thanks, Tammy. Suquamish, 3 affiliated. Tulalip, White Earth Nation, Winnebago, and Yurok. Okay. And then I'm just going to see who's on in the regional offices. Region 1, are you on? 2, 4.
4 is here.
5. Okay. 5. 6. 7.
7's on, Paige.
Thank you. 8.
8 is on.
Thank you. 9.
Yes,
9
9
is on.
Thank you. 10.
Paige, did you hear Region 4?
Yes, I did. Thanks, Jackie. Okay, great. Thanks. All right, operator, you can mute the line again. Okay, so I want to introduce LaShawn Scroggins. She's our FBLS Access Coordinator. And then I also want to introduce Derek Cullum. He is going to be doing our presentation today. And so, as you know, before tribes can access the FPLS, there are some steps that they must take to ensure that they have the correct security for their systems. And in February, we published IM 1701, Independent Security Assessor and Baseline Security Controls, as guidance to identify an appropriate qualified independent assessor. But based on some feedback that we've received during the National Tribal Child Support Conference and some other conversations that we've had from tribes, we decided that another webinar would be helpful. So I'm going to turn this over to Derek now, and he's going to lead us through the presentation.
Thanks, Paige. So good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Derek Cullum. I'm the Senior Cybersecurity Engineer for the OCSE security team. You'll be hearing my name quite a bit through this process as you come on board, specifically with the assessor process, because I am the one that reviews the documentation that you send in, and then talk with our team, LaShawn, Paige, and make the ultimate decision whether the security controls that you guys have in place at the various tribes are sufficient enough to start to receive our data. So why we're all here. So we're all here basically so that you guys can get access to the FPLS and use the various tools that we have to ultimately assist in child support cases and, you know, bringing in as much money as we possibly can for all the families so that, you know, everybody is okay, everybody's taken care of, and again, you know, the FPLS, we have a lot of information that you guys can utilize to kind of help those along and get these cases worked. So, LaShawn, if we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so as Paige had mentioned, kind of the first step in this whole process is that each tribe has to get an independent security assessment. That basically what a company's going to come in, or an entity will come in, and they're going to look at your security posture. They're going to look at physical controls. They're going to look at the technologies that you're using, computers, laptops, networking equipment, things of that nature. They're going to come in, they're going to look at it, and they're going to give you an assessment as far as using some of the standards that are out today, some various frameworks to say, you know, that are out there now for IT technology, and kind of give you a rating as far as how secure you are and, you know, where you are, and kind of assist you in, you know, making sure that your systems are secure as possible. So, LaShawn? So the purpose of an assessment is basically, to go in a little bit more detail, it's really to validate, you know, all of the security controls that you have in place, and it makes it, you know, a general determination. It's not, sometimes it can be specific, sometimes it's not so much, and it's not a negative thing, and it's certainly a positive thing. it helps to make a determination of the general security posture of an IT system, which is basically your networks, your computers, things of that nature. One of the things that these, when the assessor comes in, they're going to give you a pretty detailed report at the end. And it's very detailed as far as the findings, their observations, what they've seen. A lot of times they'll do interviews with some of the people that work there, especially the IT staff. They tend to be the ones that they'll talk to the most. And they'll give recommendations. Sometimes there's industry standards that they can say, well, for this particular device, you might want to use these configurations, if at all possible, because they are considered the most secure for that particular technology or that sort of thing. It also provides kind of a line of defense for yourselves. Again, this is not really a negative thing, even though a lot of times it can seem like that. It's more of a positive thing. It's really just telling you, what you're doing good and what, where some of your weaknesses are and where you can kind of improve a little bit, which is, again, it's a very positive thing to know that. Given the state of things, how things are going, kind of in this world climate as far as, reading in the news, there's all kinds of various hacks going on. There's people trying to steal information from overseas in Russia, China, whatever, what have you. So it's always good to know kind of your security posture and where you stand, just so that you can make sure you're as secure as possible, so that, you don't become one of the victims of the various groups out there that may be trying to get information, especially the information that we deal with here, which is a lot of PII information, but we'll go into that a little bit later. And again, it's the assessment is really just it's again a determination of whether the security controls that you have in place are really up to par with some of the federal requirements, because we as a federal agency, we're required to kind of hold a certain standard. So we try to, as much as possible, if we're going to give our information, which is considered federal information, that the partner that we're dealing with, they're going to do their very, very best to protect that information, because we're going to be held liable for that information as well. So it's just really important to, that's one of the reasons why we do assessments. Personally, I am an assessor for OCSE, so I actually do the assessments for the data that you will potentially be receiving. So I have to look at that as well in our internal processes and make sure we're secure. And then, again, I will be reviewing kind of the outside that when we send out the information for the various partners. So here's just kind of a general list of some of the acceptable assessments that we will approve. Some of them may not be valid for everyone. We have the IRS report. If any agency or tribe or any research match partner or anything that we have or that's being brought on board, if they use any kind of IRS data, any kind of FTI, which is the federal tax information, or just anything that has to deal with IRS data, they usually come out to the site and they do their own security assessment, because they have their own requirements and expectations of the people that are digesting their information. So we can take that report and go through it and look at the findings. And again, it's an assessment, so they're going to look at the strengths, they're going to look at the weaknesses. We accept that. Again, this is another one similar to that is any kind of Social Security Administration data. They do something similar to that, which is called the independent verification and validation. It's, again, just another assessment. And then we have the next two are really outside people that kind of come into the organization, whether you're a company or an example that I like to give with other matching partners is, let's say, for the sake of argument, you are a tribe and you are getting information from, let's say, the state of Montana. The state of Montana may have an internal group that manages their IT systems and their IT security, and they, as a state, are required to do their own security assessments for their systems. And they may have a requirement that if you're using Montana, the state of Montana's data, they have to come out and visit your site and make sure that their data is protected as well. We would accept that as an assessment and kind of go, again, I would review it, talk with the folks on our side, give our opinion as to, whether the security posture is good. It could use some improvements, and we can have additional discussions. but then ultimately bringing the tribe on board or the matching partner or whatever it is. And then the other one is basically you hire a company that will kind of come in and they'll do an assessment that's similar to all the ones we just discussed, where they come in, they're an unbiased opinion. They come in, they don't really know your system, so they usually ask for an explanation. What kind of business are you in? What kind of systems do you have? They'll talk to all the various stakeholders, directors, the IT folks, things of that, security guards if you have those. And again, they'll put it in a nice report at the very end and say, what the strengths were, what the weaknesses were, and then that would be the documentation that you would submit to us for review, and then we can bring you on board once everything is approved. So basically what you're looking for in an assessor, as Paige said, there was some questions. This can be a confusing process. I will admit, being an assessor myself, tends not to be the easiest thing, but it certainly, with the right resources, it makes things a lot easier. So what you're really looking for in an assessor is just an unbiased outside opinion. You don't necessarily want the IT security director of your tribe that knows the system that in most cases has actually designed the network and has designed the security controls. They already know what's going on, and they may know the weaknesses, they may not, but they're not an unbiased opinion as far as, because they're the ones that designed it, they're the ones that have the stake in that particular technology or whatever it may be. So that's why we tend to have, the various entities that, again, SSA, IRS, if they come out, or the company that you hire to come in to do that security assessment. And, you want that assessor just to be a very competent individual that kind of knows the general state of how IT is going as far as technology, with the cybersecurity technologies. They want to know processes and the latest frameworks out there that a lot of times on the federal side, which we'll talk about in the next bullet point, we have a lot of requirements and a lot of statutes and things of that nature that we're required to follow, but they can be digested by the general public because a lot of them are pretty general as far as the information that they're providing, and it really gives you kind of a template, if you would say, to how to kind of design your security in, big or small, depending on how big your tribe or your organization is. So you'll want to have, like the assessor that you're talking to, you want to have that comfort that they kind of know what they're talking about. They know about NIST is actually a very big one. They put out a lot of information. That's one of the big ones that we're required to follow. All of their information is public. You just have to kind of go to the NIST.gov website, and there's many, many publications out there that, some are lengthy, some can be a little bit confusing. A lot of times it needs, more a technical person that kind of understands technology and things. But it still kind of gives you a baseline. So you want to make sure that your assessor at least knows what NIST is, or OMB requirements, or even if they're a little bit more advanced, because the IRS, they're very, very, very particular about their data and how it's managed and secured. Their information is public as well. We just want to make sure that they understand that. Like the assessor, they know where to look if they're going to be doing an assessment for you, and that kind of gives them the base framework as to what they're going to test against. And then that also gives us the comfort that, okay, they did a NIST 853 assessment is what it's called. When I get that, I know, because I do NIST personally, that, okay, I can go through each security control and there will be details as to what was found, the strengths and weaknesses, and then, I can take that conversation to LaShawn or Paige and say, they did really well here. They did fantastic. Let's go ahead and move forward, or give our opinion to say that, there's a little bit of room for improvement, and we would, try to work with them as, best we can. One second here. Okay, so when you kind of start this process, again, this can be a little bit daunting. It's not the easiest process in the world, but again, there are some resources out there. So what you want to look for, you just want to kind of do a little bit of research. Google tends to be very, very helpful, which I'll show you in the next slide. Kind of just a generic search that I personally did. that kind of help, that may be able to help you find the right company to come in and do the security assessment, if that's the assessment style that you choose. And, you know, when you go to these companies, you know, you want to verify they have proper certifications, they have proper credentials, and they're not just somebody from the local IT shop that may not necessarily have all those. And we'll talk about some of the certifications and qualifications that you really want to look for, credentials. So here's just a very generic Google search for assessors. I use Montana. I mean, you tend to have to be a little bit specific because Montana is kind of big. Or, you know, if you're certainly in a bigger state, obviously you may have to narrow it down to a county or even the town that the main office of the tribe is located. And again, you'll see that you get a bunch of different IT security companies. Now, they may not all necessarily do assessments, but it kind of gets you close enough. I highlighted the LMG Security. From just even looking at their website, doing a cursory look, they seem to do security assessments. So in Montana, you know, that's certainly an option. So here we're talking about the credentials that when you're talking to these various companies, you want to ask them about. That if they're going to send some assessors to your facility, you just want to make sure that they know what they're talking about. They have some experience in the cybersecurity world. But these are some of the professional certifications that you can get as a security professional that really shows that you took the time to study. You kind of know what you're doing, because a lot of these you actually have to have experience in the field. Particularly the one up top, the CISSP. That's one of the ones that it's highly sought after, and it's highly regarded in the cybersecurity business because of the level of effort that it requires to know all of the material, and it's a lot of material across a lot of different things. It's not all just technology, but again, it's sought after, and with that one in particular, you are required to have 5 years of experience before they will even accept you as a CISSP. They have a term for it, and they actually have a term for most of these certifications, except for one of them, where you're basically just an associate. Sure, you passed the test, you know the knowledge, but you haven't proven the knowledge. And they have a very rigorous process as far as you have to submit references, and your managers have to verify that you worked for 5 years. They have various technologies and various specialties for those particular tests that you have to be able to verify. So when you see those, or they can provide that in these conversations, if you're doing an RFP with them, they can provide this information to you. It's just a matter of saying, hey, you know, do you have people on your team or the assessors that are going to be coming into my organization? Do they have a CISSP? Do they have a CISM? Do they have a CAP, which actually, which is one of the bigger ones, and one of the kind of the beginner one that we point this out, but we want to be a little bit hesitant depending on how many years of experience that particular person may have. Is a Security Plus, because that's kind of the basic. It's kind of your way into security. When you kind of go on this path, this career path, that's one of the first ones you get, and then you kind of figure out what you want to do, and then you kind of get into these more advanced certifications. So, you know, these are just some of them to look out for. Again, in some circumstances, a lot of experience will kind of trump that, and a lot of companies see that. They may not necessarily have all of the certs, but if they've been in business for a while, they have the people that, you know, they're assessors. I've been doing cybersecurity for 20 years. You know, that definitely gives you kind of the warm and fuzzy, so to speak, that you know, they're going to do what they're supposed to do. They're going to provide you with what you need to kind of move along in this process. So here are another kind of search that you can do other than Google. These two organizations are actually two of the organizations that provide those certifications, or they're the ones that kind of run the testing and all of the validation, again, that we spoke about for the work experience. ISC Squared and the ISACA group. So they actually have chapter locators on each of their web pages, which we'll show you in the next coming up slides, where you can go and actually see if there's a chapter close to you and it usually has a contact number for the director or maybe even the president of that particular chapter, and they may be able to point you in the right direction as far as, they know that one of their members works for ABC Security. Maybe you can contact them, things of that nature. So it just kind of gives you a little bit of a boost in this whole search process. So on the next slide, we have the ISC Secure website with the link up top. I hope it's not too blurry for everyone, and you can actually see here, but you can select it by country, and then it kind of even drills it down to county, state, you can actually drill down pretty far as to find a chapter in your area. And again, like I said, it will give you the contact information for that chapter, whether it's the president or the director, and they may be able to point you in the right direction. Same on this slide as well. This is just the ISACA website. Again, it allows you to go. There's chapters all over the world. These two organizations have been doing certifications for a very long time. They're very reputable. So again, you can do a chapter search, get it as close as possible, give them a call, see if they're able to help you. And that kind of, again, that's just another way to kind of find, or try to narrow down your search to find a competent security assessor. All right, so before we move on to slide 13, we're going to take just a little bit of a break, and we'll open the line to questions. I know it's a lot of information that can be kind of heavy. I hope I wasn't speaking too fast, but feel free to ask questions. I didn't see any questions in the Q&A section of the WebEx, so we'll go ahead and open the lines, and if you have any questions so far, please let me know. We're about halfway through, so.
If you would like to ask a question on the phone line, please press *1 and record your name at the prompt. Again, press *1. Please check to be sure that your line is unmuted and record your name when prompted.
And this is LaShawn. You can feel free to input your questions using the Q&A box at any point during the rest of the presentation, and we'll pause to answer the questions that way as well.
And we do have a couple questions online.
Sure.
We have Sue, I believe the name was. Your line is open.
Sis?
Oh,
Was it Sis?
Yes, your line is open. I'm sorry.
Okay, I had a couple questions. Are there any tribal assessors available? And also, if we opted to go to that Social Security assessment, can we tribes ask for that? And also, I want to know if there's any updated fees. Anything changed on the cost?
So I'll try to answer this in a couple stages. So the first question. There aren't any specific tribal security companies that really do security assessments just specific to tribes. It's more of a general thing because, again, a lot of the frameworks that are used or let's say that I use when I do my security assessments for OCSE, they're publicly available. So all of these companies are actually a lot of these security companies that you'll find when you're doing your research, they'll be aware of them.
What I mean is there any tribal people that can do the assessment?
Sis, are you asking if there are any tribally owned assessor businesses?
Yes. Yes.
Well, that's actually good to know. I did not know that. Personally, I don't know that information to be able to give that, but I'm sure you might be able to contact them and see if there are any in your area.
Well, so, Sis, sorry, this is Paige. I think that your question is, do we know of any tribally owned assessor businesses? And the answer to that is no.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question.
Okay. So for the second question that you had, you really can't request an assessment from SSA. It's only if you're getting their data. Like if you have an agreement with them or they're giving you Social Security numbers, is just kind of a random example, for your case, like working your cases at your particular tribe. They will only do assessments or send you, it's called the independent verification. They only send that if you're actually working with them and their data. It's not something you can kind of call them and say, hey, we need an assessment.
Okay.
And then the third question, unfortunately, we can't, the cost is unknown, at least from our perspective. You may be able to ask some of the other tribes out there. I believe Muskogee Creek, Cherokee, and White Earth have actually, they've gone through the approval process, and they're either on the FPLS data or they're in the process of doing so. So they may be able to kind of give you a little bit of information as far as their experience, as far as how much it costs to kind of do the whole process.
Well, I thought the federal fees, I mean about the FPLS access fees, Paige.
So the fees, they get updated every year. I don't know if they have been updated, but I'm sure that you put the fees the amounts that you had in your budget already for fiscal year 18. Is that
okay?
Well,
I haven't put it in there yet, but I haven't put it in there yet because I'm trying to get all the information I can before I do a budget mod.
And this is LaShawn. If anyone needed to know what the fees would be today, if you were to come on board with accessing the FPLS today, then you can shoot me an email and I can tell you what those fees are. But in terms of the fees that are going to be charged in the future, those are being updated. We don't have those numbers yet, but at least what we have now could give you a little bit of an idea.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next we have Ashley Wilson. Your line is open.
Hi. My question is similar as far as the finance goes. So say that we're ready to hire a contractor to come in and assess. Is that something, if we don't have it in our current budget, this is something that's come up, we'll have to do a budget modification. Is this something that would need to have prior approval from you guys before we could move forward for a budget, like a budget modification or budget request?
Ashley, this is Paige. So this is a cost that is allocable to the program, and you're talking about for fiscal year 18?
Yes.
And you guys have already put your budget in?
Yeah, I think it's been submitted. I'm not sure. My director's out. She's actually at the NTCSA, so I'm not sure about the budgeting part. My question is if sometime in the next year we decide we want to do this, before we hired that contractor, would it have to be pre-approved before we did that?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to enter into a contract with somebody, it would be considered a budget modification because it's not something that had already been approved in your fiscal year 18 budget. So you would have to submit a copy of the contract. We'd have to approve it, and then you could, once it's approved, then you could enter into the contract to get this done.
Okay. That was all I had.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we have one more question coming in.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. Sis, again, your line is open?
I'm just full of questions today, Paige. That was one of my questions I wrote down here. So are you going to have some contract requirements that we need to follow like we do with Greg Kidder?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't. You don't know? So if we just get a contract together and send it to you, you're not going to come back and say, oh, you have to have this in there, you have to have that in there? I'm just trying to prepare beforehand so I don't waste my time doing something and you guys come back and say, oh, no, you have to do it this way?
I hadn't contemplated that question, sis. I don't know that we, I'd have
How
to
did the
look
other
into.
tribes do it?
Well,
did the other tribes do contractors?
I'm sure they did.
So there was no problems when they sent their contracts in?
I don't recall any.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just get with one of them and ask them to share their contracts.
I know that White Earth did an assessment for all of the systems in their whole tribe. And so we may not have seen that because they were looking at all of the systems.
Okay, thank you.
I'll have to think about that, sis. You stumped me.
Okay. There are no other questions in the queue at this time.
Okay, we do have one question from the Q&A box from Allison, which is, how much should we expect to budget or pay for this service?
So it's kind of, as LaShawn said, is kind of as you go, there's a current price that we have now, which is kind of handled by our data access team. And we're actually going to bring this up a little bit in the next few slides about the agreement that once you've been approved, there's an agreement that has to be signed between both of us, just that we're going to follow, various protections and things of that nature as far as the security is concerned. But currently, there is a price to use the FPLS, but as LaShawn said, we haven't come up with the new price for the next fiscal year as of yet, but it's in the works, from what I understand.
I think Allison's question is, how much should they anticipate spending on the contractor to actually do the assessment, not the FPLS fees?
Well, again, unfortunately, we don't have that number. It can be kind of complicated depending on the size and things of that nature. We just can't really, we can't really come up with a number. You really just have to kind of communicate. You can either communicate with some of the other tribes that have done it so far, or as you're doing your research for the companies in your area, they'll definitely give you more accurate quotes as far as how much it would cost for the actual assessment itself for that contractor to come into your facility. Okay. So if there's not any other questions, we'll go ahead and mute all the lines. We're almost through this. We got a few more slides. We're going to kind of shift gears a little bit here. So let's go ahead and move on. Okay. So why is security important? It's really important, again, as we've spoken in the last few slides. The information that we're dealing with here, especially in the FPLS, a lot of the information we have is PII. If we can probably say all of it is PII, just for the simple fact that it's everybody that it gives you kind of the window to look at people's personal information, their addresses, how many their kids' addresses, their kids' social security numbers, just a wide variety of information that's in the FPLS. So it's just really important to kind of protect that because, again, the world landscape that we're in right now, there's a lot of people just hacking. There's a lot of shady things going on, and people are stealing data. They're selling people's social security numbers for pennies on the dollar to make a profit off of it. There's identity theft that's been going on for quite a few years now, but they're getting more advanced in actually getting this information. So that's why the security assessment is a very important kind of tool in the security arsenal, because it kind of just gives you that idea again where you are, where your weaknesses are, and even where you're strong at. As again, it's not a negative thing; it's more of a positive. So the reason why we're going through this, and we'll talk about the agreement in the next slide. And what that agreement is basically saying that, you're going to agree to a certain amount of requirements that you're going to protect the data that we give to you because of the sensitivity of it. Again, we don't want identity theft. We don't want somebody's privacy leaked out there unnecessarily, which, can be detrimental because it has social security numbers where people live. It can cause some serious issues if the data is ever compromised. Here we've got some bullets about the Tribal Security Agreement. Now, this step comes after you've been approved, after the assessment's been approved, and we agree as a team here at OCSE that it's okay to bring you guys on. So now the agreement is basically set up just to kind of give you the minimum requirements that we're just going to expect from you guys. And it's based off of all the current laws, policies, and regulations that we have from Congress, as well as our own internal policies, some of the stuff we derive from best practices that are going on in the technology world, specific to security and privacy and PII. We kind of work internally. We work hand in hand with a lot of the folks that, they're lawyers and things of that nature, so they're always updating us as to kind of all the various legislation and those things. And as IT professionals here, we do a lot of research and kind of see what's going on as far as, again, the climate, and see what's happening out there, and, what we can do to better protect our data, as well as protect, try to help the tribes protect themselves as well. A lot of the requirements, again, are very they're very good. It's not really a good word, but they're very helpful because can kind of give you the baseline, is what we call it. We'll say it's a baseline of security controls that, we just expect from this agreement, that, hey, we're going to give you our data. We just really want you to protect it as best you can. So the agreement it entails a bunch of different things, but it gives you that guide. So you'll always know what's expected. And if we ever ask for anything, or, are you still doing this in a certain way that, when you sign the agreement, we have that kind of basis to say, okay, we expect you to do this. How are you doing it for us? And, how is our data being protected? So it was drafted, this particular one, the Tribal Security Agreement itself was specifically drafted based on access approved for tribes and set forth by all the statutory stuff that we get from Congress as far as what types of data we can give the tribes, things of that nature. One of the things we want to highlight here is that this is a blanket security agreement. So it's kind of designed with the intent that not a lot of changes need to be made. We tried to make it as general as possible. So we kind of request that when you get it and you're kind of going through your process after you've been approved to come on board, that you don't modify it. And if you have a problem, you can always contact us. But we wanted to keep it, again, as a blanket security agreement so that we can share it to all the tribes, and we don't have to necessarily customize it for each tribe that wants to come on board. It just kind of makes our lives a little bit easier as well as yours, since it's, we try to generalize it, again, as as best we could. So here, again, we've kind of talked about this a little bit. Kind of the changing landscape. This is the federal government, the kind of world climate. We as the federal government, unfortunately, we have rules that we have to follow for data maintenance, how we're doing our security internally. And, it has to be used across every agency, regardless of who you are, the CIA, the HHS, anybody is really required. We have a baseline of security controls. We have a baseline requirements and legislation that we're required to follow. So we try to hold our partners to the same standard as much as we can. We understand there's certain situations, but we try to, you're authorized, when we authorize you to obtain our data, we just expect that you are going to comply with the specific requirements that we put in the security agreement. Again, it just keeps kind of going on. OCSE is required to comply with any laws, rules, and regulations affecting data security because we have to report up, how our systems are doing. Have we had breaches before? How many breaches in a year have you had? Things of that nature. So we are required to kind of report a lot of things as far as how our data is doing, again, because it's federal data. And to kind of close it out a little bit, with the agreement or anything that's going on during our partnership, we will provide a written notification of anything that's going to change. If for some reason something happens and the government says, well, you need to change the security requirement, you need to put it in your security agreements for all of your various partners, you're going to know about it. We're going to send you notice to say, hey, we know you signed this 2 years, we know you signed this last year, but we had a very major change, something very bad happened or something, maybe not necessarily bad. We have a new agreement. We were required to update it. So then, you're going to get that written, the written assurance that, your partnership with us is still good. We may just, there may be new or revised security requirements that we'll just kind of expect you to follow throughout our partnership together. So here, we'll just kind of talk a little bit about security controls. I mean, this tends to be a little bit more technical. Not a lot of folks really get involved in this, but it's just kind of some general good information. A security control is just basically something you have in place to protect data or protect people. Regardless of what it is, if it's a fence that kind of surrounds your building, that's a security control. Your computer, you have to shut it down every night. That's actually a security control. You have to log out of your computer when you leave at home. Things like that. Those are security controls. And again, when the assessors come out, they're going to look at those types of things, and they're going to base their decision and their opinion, their recommendations on, again, various industry best practices out there regarding configurations of how computers should be configured to make sure data is safe. It's just a very basic example. Regardless of the system, or if you're a tribe, if you're a federal agency, you want to maintain your security controls that are commensurate with the level of the complexity of your systems. Sure, a lot of people don't have very complex systems. They may not have very many computers, servers, networking equipment, because they're just a smaller tribe or they're a smaller research partner, what have you. Or you get on the bigger side like us, we're OCSC, we're under HHS. There's very many programs. We have hundreds, even thousands of pieces of equipment, regardless of what it is. So we keep our security commensurate with the particular complexity that we have in our organization. So, it's just kind of something helpful for your security folks when they're looking at things. You say, we're not very big, so there are some things that we have to kind of, we can't afford to because we're just not very big. Things like that. Those always come into play when you talk about these kinds of things. Again, here's just kind of a list of security controls, and I believe we actually had a pretty extensive list for the baseline controls that came out in February with the IM that kind of give you a lot more detail actually than just a few of these. But as you can see, there's just various things, whether it's configuration, vulnerability management, patch management. Again, a little bit more on the technical side, but hopefully you get the idea of what a security control is. And then one of the biggest things in our industry as the cybersecurity industry is this term called defense in depth. So basically what it's saying is that you don't have one control in place and expect that control to kind of protect you always. You're going to have multiple layers. Remember my teacher used to say, it's like an onion. You have the core of the onion, which is your organization, and then there's many layers that continue to branch out as the skin of the onion. So you kind of, and again, in security, that's the way we look at things. You have multiple things in place, as many as you can possibly have. Again, that's commensurate with your complexity of your organization, small or big. And, you have them in place, and you're constantly monitoring them in some way, shape, or form. So I just put this note at the bottom, don't really use this as an exhaustive list. Really, when it comes to security, the more you can have, the better off you're going to be, because it'll just be harder and harder. You're making harder and harder for any kind of attacker or just any malicious person from actually getting to the prize, which is the PII data, Social Security numbers, as being one of the larger prizes, if you want to call it that. So again, with security controls, you kind of this is a way to easily kind of group them when you talk about security controls. You have management controls, you have operational controls, and you have technical controls. Management controls, an example of that would be you have 5 people that work in, let's say, the case department. Not all 5 people can actually do the same job. Maybe 2 of them have a particular job for intake, and then 2 people have a particular job when they close out the case. So you're kind of separating that. That's what that's just kind of a generic example of a management control. Operational control is you have policies and procedures in place. Somebody has to lock the door at night. There's 4 keys there's only 4 people that can actually open the facility in the morning. And then you have a technical control, which is you have firewalls for your network equipment. You have antivirus is a technical control. A lot of people have antivirus on their laptops or desktops. So that's what you can consider a technical control. And again, this is just a very simple way to kind of categorize when you're going through, or actually when they do your assessment, these are what they're going to look at. They're going to look at your management, they're going to look at your operational, and they're going to look at your technical controls. And sometimes if you're in conversation with them when you're talking to them, they may call it the MOT. It's just really an acronym for it. It's just MOT, management, operational, technical. But just some kind of the more you know for that. Next slide, please. And here's just a generic definition again, that tells you about the controls, just kind of give you a general idea of what those various controls are. So that kind of brings us to the end. We just really want to say that, OCSE is here to help you guys. The security team, LaShawn, she's kind of doing all the access coordination as far as the tribes coming in. And then you have Paige, of course. She's probably a liaison that you're very, very familiar with. So, if there's anything you guys ever need, if you have you have a question about, you called somebody and you didn't really understand, you can always email the security team. You can always email LaShawn, and we'll talk about it and see, give as much help as we can. And then, again, you're always in contact with Paige for budgeting and those sorts of things, so you always want to keep her in the loop through this process. But, again, we're here to help, and we'll try. Ultimately, we want to bring you guys on. We want to give you the tools, extra tools, let's say, to be able to, work your cases a little bit easier and, really help the families that you guys are working with on a daily basis. So on the next slide, we have just our contact information. You got Paige, of course, LaShawn. Carol, she was unfortunately not here today. She had another meeting that conflicted, but she is my manager, and we tend to work kind of hand in hand when it comes to the tribe assessments. When they come in, if I'm a little overworked, I'll send it to her, or we kind of talk about it as a group. And then, again, there's there's my desk number as well as my email. I would just ask that if you communicate directly with the security team, please add Paige and LaShawn to your emails, just so we can kind of keep everybody in the loop, as far as what we're telling everybody and what you guys are letting us know, the troubles that you're having. It'll just make it a little bit easier for everybody so we're all on the same page. So we'll go ahead and open it up for questions one more time. Again, I know it's a little bit heavy, so you can just kind of let us know, what you guys are thinking. If you have any more questions, we're here. We kind of finished a little bit early, so there's plenty of time for questions. So.
As a reminder, to ask a question, please press *1 on your touch-tone phone and record your name when prompted.
I see we had a question in the Q&A section. Someone had asked, who has access to FPLS right now, and that is we have White Earth Nation and Muskogee have access. Particularly, I think Muskogee was our very first, and they've had access for quite a while now. So they may actually be a very good resource for you guys to kind of, if you can kind of talk to each other. I think is it Carol? Yes, Carol over there. We worked pretty much hand in hand through this whole process, and she was our guinea pig. She's definitely a wealth of information.
So that's Carol Williams from Muskogee Creek Nation, and also Susan Arkakida, I think is how you pronounce the last name.
And we are in the process of bringing the Cherokee Nation on. They submitted their assessment. We approved it. And now we're just working out some of the next process, which was the tribal security agreement, and kind of working through that whole process. So.
Do we have any questions on the line, operator?
Yes, we have Sis Horn. Your line is open.
Hello. I'm just wondering, you talked about this blanket security agreement. Is that available online for us to look at?
The agreement has actually been shared with the tribes in the past, but we're actually in the process of updating it because, as Derek mentioned, sometimes the laws that govern security processes change, and we've had a number of changes that have taken place that require us to update that blanket agreement. So the new one will be available soon. So anybody coming on board from this point on will be signing the one that's being updated right now and not the one that was shared in the past.
And sis, when we first started this process, sis, the decision was made not to post it online, but to send it out individually to the directors or through a listserv message, because we don't want people to that may be looking to hack into systems to have the security agreement so that they could see what we need. So if you want to get a copy of that, once it's updated, then I'm sure we could share it with you.
Okay, yeah, because I was looking through my folder here and I don't have that, and I would appreciate a copy of it.
Absolutely.
I meet with my tribe. I got to tell them what all they're going to have to agree to.
Right, and again, you get it through the process, and as Paige said, there is a particular section in there that we call the security addendum, which is the very specific stuff that we're going to look for when you get our data, and it can be a wide variety of things like you have security training, you have firewalls in place. If somebody didn't have a firewall in place in their network, that might be a really big issue, and if somebody knew that from the outside, it could be really bad. So that particular part of the agreement is very specific as far as our requirements. So, again, that's why we don't want to send it out or put it out there online.
But Derek, sometimes before the tribes can move forward with going on into these things, they have to be able to let their tribal council know what kind of what they would have to do. So
right.
So we're going to need to provide that so that CIS can figure out if she's going to get the go-ahead to move forward.
Right, and on a more personal basis, sure, like you're going to send it to her or a listserv that only specifically has the tribal, the directors and their emails. That's fine. Like we wouldn't want to put it on the OCSE web pages is more along the lines of what I was trying to get at, because that's actually a public web page.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Did we have any other questions on the line?
No, there are currently no other questions in the queue.
It looks like Allison has requested a copy of the updated agreement and addendum. Certainly, as soon as we get it set up, we can certainly pass it along. I don't see an issue with that. But don't worry, it doesn't really affect if you have a current agreement with us, it doesn't really affect that. It's just updated, updated security requirements that we got down from on high at HHS.
Are there any other questions?
As a reminder, if you would like to ask a question on the phone lines, please press *1 and record your name when prompted.
I just want to remind folks that we're going to make this available, this call available to other folks that weren't able to attend. I don't know how long that's going to take. I think we have to get the audio transcribed first before we can put it on the web page, but we will be doing that.
And I also want to offer that if any tribe would like a one-on-one conversation with our team, you can feel free to send me an email and I'd be happy to set that up. So just in case you have questions that are specific to your tribe and your situation, we can help walk you through those. Someone asked, Sis asked, will you be sending this PowerPoint out to us? We already sent it, but we can send it again if you didn't get it. And also, when it's posted on the web, it will be the PowerPoint with the voices added. So you'll get it that way as well.
Is there a way that they can download it now from the WebEx?
The operator will have to answer that.
Yeah.
But it's not a problem for us to just resend it. I'm not sure if just this needs it or if everyone needs it. And it looks like, Alana, did you have a question? Operator, will we be able to, okay, Alana has a question about the reference to the blanket agreement and the option of adapting the security agreement to individual tribal needs. How would that process take place?
So again, on that, unfortunately, we don't want to do that. We had a discussion with our director, and there was just kind of some back and forth, and with the lawyers as well on the data access team. They had the kind of the consensus was that we don't want to change it, just because it can be kind of confusing if we start to change it, especially as we said, the requirements can change at any time, and you know, again, if it's a blanket agreement, we can send it out to everybody, you know, once it's complete, just so they know kind of the new things they're going to be required to follow. We just don't really want to adapt it specifically to a tribe, unfortunately.
Right, but the other thing is the reason it's a blanket agreement is because the requirements, the security requirements are the same for every tribe regardless. So it's the basic security requirements that we have in place. So it's not going to be different from one tribe to the next. Even though your systems may be different, some maybe have larger things in place and complex systems in place, and some tribes may not, but the security controls that are in the security agreement are the basic ones that everybody would be required to follow because of the laws that are out here. So the only thing that we would change on the agreement is who the agreement is with, who OCSE is entering into the agreement with. So the tribe's name would go on the agreement and those signatures, but the requirements are the same.
Yes. And now, if there, again, as LaShawn said, if there are specific issues you have, or if there's a problem that you'd like to talk about, we can certainly set up one-on-ones and we can kind of go over it. We've done it with Muskogee. We had a question about the security assessment that they provided, so we had a little conference call, got everything worked out, and LaShawn and I talked about it, and you know, we're able to get things moving. So that's definitely always an option. Is, you know, we can always try to help you as much as we can. That's what we're here for.
And I just want to also point out that security agreements aren't just unique to the tribes. Every entity that gets information from the FPLS has a security agreement with OCSE. So that's matching partners, other state agencies that get our information, and even state child support programs.
We even have agreements with other federal agencies that we work pretty much hand in hand with. They're required to, you know, kind of fill out the same documents that you guys would, just so we're all in agreement, you know, with that particular partnership, whatever it may be.
Any other questions? This is good. You can type them in, or you can follow the operator's instructions and ask them verbally.
Yep. Questions are good.
Okay, so Allison says, my concern is that I'm aware of the huge spectrum of costs associated with this assessment. The range I've learned about is from $5,000 to $30,000. So, again, we can't really speak on the cost. It's probably going to be determined by the complexity of your system. So, like you would do bargain shopping, but for good quality with anything else that you purchase, you know, we would recommend that you get estimates from more than one company. And, you know, see what they're offering you. Do their assessors have the same certifications? Are they able to provide the same level of service? You know, do they have good references? If you can get 2 or 3 estimates and see, you know, which ones offer you the quality service that you're looking for and also at a good price, then that's what you would want to go with. But as Paige mentioned earlier, the cost of the assessment is allocable to your the funding you receive from OCIC. So Allison said, we've also been told to expect to pay at least $100,000. So what I would say to that is talk to some of the other tribes that have already gone through this process and see if you can get some information from them. Sometimes there may be power in numbers. If tribes are, you know, within close proximity of each other and you're able to find a vendor to do the assessments, maybe they will be willing to give a discount based on, you know, doing it for more than one tribe. So sometimes it may be a matter of negotiating.
And actually, to that point, that's something that I tend to forget to mention. Sometimes security companies are willing to travel. They're willing to come out. Like if you're having trouble finding one, and maybe Muskoge's like, well, you know, try calling this company, and you call them, and they're like, well, you know, yeah, we may not have a local office in that particular state, but sometimes they're willing to work out, as LaShawn said. You know, sometimes repeat customers tends to work a little bit, and some assessors, again, are willing to travel. Some do have multiple offices in multiple states, and sometimes they're just really local operations. So it's kind of a mixed bag out there. It just takes a little bit of research and a little bit of communication to kind of hopefully get you there.
Okay, well, we don't need to continue to keep you on the line if you guys don't have additional questions. I hope that you found this helpful. Please contact any of us if you have additional questions about the security assessment process or access to FPLS.
Paige, we did have a couple other questions come in.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see those. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no problem. So Jessica asked if she wants to review the webinar slides again, will it be available online? And the answer is yes. So we're hoping to be able to have this out within the next couple of weeks. We have to get the call transcribed so that we have the written information as well as the verbal information that you'll hear and see as you're watching the recording. So, yeah, you will be able to see that. And then Allison says that she's consulted with the tribes with access and cybersecurity consultants and will continue to explore and work. Oh, so she's just telling what she's doing and saying thank you. No problem. We definitely hope that this call has been helpful. And Sis says thank you. I don't want to end the call without giving Sis another opportunity to ask a question because she says she loves questions and has a lot.
Gold star.
So, Sis, you know, before we end it, we're giving you another chance to come on the line if you have anything else you want to put out there. Okay.
All righty.
Well, it sounds like that is it. So, again, thank you for participating in the call today. We hope
Excuse me, we do have a question queuing up just as you were closing. One moment.
All right, go ahead.
I'm going to drag
your
this
line
out
is open.
as long as possible. Kidding. No, I do appreciate all the information. It's really helpful to me, and I'm glad that I got some of those Montana contacts because when I contacted the state of Montana Child Support, they sent me a list of people that were from New Jersey, New York, Florida, and all of this stuff. So that's good information, but I also wanted to ask about the timeline on getting approval on the FPLS agreement or access. What's the timeline?
Sure. So I can tell you from my perspective, for the assessment side of the side of the house, once it's submitted, I tend to take about a week or two, depending on my workload internally. But I try to get it out within 2 weeks. I'll review it, and again, whatever framework that they use to do the security assessment, I'll kind of pull up that framework side by side, and I'll go through it. And if it's one I already know, then it makes it a little bit faster. But I usually try to do it within 2 weeks. And then after that, it gets turned over to LaShawn and our data access team, and that's where all the agreements and the payments and all that fun stuff comes into play.
So I can tell you, once Derek tells us that the security assessment has been approved and you have a good security posture, then the next thing that we will do is send you the security agreement, and we send you a reimbursement agreement that lists the fees that the tribe would have to pay for access for that year. And once you review the security agreement and sign it and send it back to us, and the reimbursement agreement and sign it and send it back to us, then we will send you an invoice. You'll send us the payment. There are different payment methods that we accept. We accept checks. We accept credit cards. You let us know how you want to pay. And once we get your payment, then we turn it over to our data access team, and they will find out who on your staff is going to have access. They will get your IP address. They will set up that access, and then we will provide training once you have the access. And once the training is completed, then, you're free to roam. So, and use the system. So actually, I think that getting the security agreement and the reimbursement agreement signed is usually the longest time span, just because you have to go through it and read everything and, make sure that everybody is on board with what's in there. But once we get that back, I would say, and no more than, I want to say 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, 3 weeks may be long, you'll have access. And it's also going to depend on when you're available for training. And the training is actually via webinar. We have a desk guide that we provide to your staff as well, a navigation guide, so that they'll have something that they can have at their desk just in case they have questions once they get access. But then we also have a help desk, and we will provide ongoing support if there are more questions once everything is said and done. So we don't just train you and leave you alone. We are here to continue to support you all along the way. So, if there are no other questions, operator?
Are there no other questions in the queue?
All right.
Okay. Well, with that, we will bid everyone a happy rest of the afternoon, and thanks again for participating on the call. And if you have any questions, and again, if you want to set up any individual conversations with us, just reach out, and we are definitely here. And I'm anxious to get as many tribes on board as possible. So let's get rolling. I'm excited.
Yep.
But thank you.
Thank you for your participation in today's conference. This concludes the call. You may disconnect your lines at this time.